Good morning. If we can have everyone make their way to their seats so we can get ready to get started, we greatly appreciate it. It's nice to see all of you here this morning. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. My name is Shanice Carr. I am the director of the Volusia Rape Crisis Center here with SMA Healthcare. It is my pleasure this morning to present to you one of our sponsors who will be introducing our speaker this morning. Maureen France is a physician liaison for EME Pros, and she is a board member of SMA Healthcare. Maureen?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Shanice. I wanted to say a brief, commercial. I don't know. We really don't need advertisements for my business, but I work for the emergency physicians that are affiliated with Advent Health. We've invited some of our nurses from our hospitals that we serve here to have this opportunity for education in mental health. So I appreciate all of you that took your time to come here, and I appreciate the company that I work for, EM Pros, Emergency Medicine Professionals, because they are an advocate of us having this educational opportunity. So your presenter this morning for this session, which is titled Embracing Love, Your Toolkit for Emotional Management and Newfound Clarity. And our speaker is Scott Goyette. I want to tell you a little bit about Scott. I just had the pleasure of meeting him this morning, but I'm impressed already and can't wait to hear him. He is the former chairperson for educators for the National Speakers Association, educational podcast host. I think I have heard some of those. He's an author, he's a college professor, and a personal development coach. Found out he's originally from Boston, and he's now living in Austin, Texas. Through all of his roles, Scott inspires people all over the world by sharing memorable stories, impactful lessons, and tools that empower us to become more mindful and deeply tuned in to our senses. He uses a unique blend of humor, contagious energy, and his passion for learning, which makes every presentation motivational and educational. Being the founder of the Go Love Now movement, he practices what he preaches. He told me he was already meditating this morning.
I was.
By loving himself enough to allow his cup to overflow so he can always be in service to others. He believes that life can be so much more fulfilling when you find your purpose, you love yourself unconditionally, and you live in a state of constant gratitude. Love that. So please help me welcome Scott Goyette.
Thank you, guys. Are we all set? All right. Thank you guys very much. I don't know, how many of you guys are here staying at the Hilton from out of town? No? So I just had an interesting experience this morning. I was trying to figure out what the deal with is from people from Daytona, because I was in the elevator coming down, and there's three people in the elevator, and they're staring at me like weird. And so I get down, and then the security guard comes over to me, and he's like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "What?" And I realized I didn't have my pants on because I thought it was a Zoom meeting because we've been doing this since 2020. I'm just teasing. But I really do have sandals on because I dislocated my toe because we went to Cabo to take a break after 2020. I was jumping out of a jacuzzi to be kind to turn on the jacuzzi for everybody. Dislocated two toes, had to get surgery. That's the only reason I'm wearing sandals. So I typically dress a little bit better, but I went to dinner last night with shoes, and it hurt like crazy. So I want to be very honest with you guys. And so this morning I came in really excited to see Pete early and talk to everybody. And I personally, it was almost amazing that this happened because I see everything as an opportunity. I started feeling a ton of anxiety. And this happened to me, and I'm going to tell you a story as we get more into this. I never had anxiety. I mean, I've spoken to thousands of people at once. Nothing ever bothered me. It's so simple for me to do this. And I think that this message I'm going to share with you guys is so meaningful that what's happened over the last few years is sometimes I get this feeling I'm going to have a panic attack. And so I'm sure some of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You've either had them or you deal with people who've had them. And so I had to sit here and meditate, and I'm like, am I even going to be able to get up here? So full disclosure. Now, the cool thing is I'm standing here and it's all working out, but you know that stressful feeling where you're sitting here saying, what's happening? You get the dry mouth, you feel the sweat. So just to let you guys know, if I sit in the chair or whatever, I'm still here, and I'll make sure that everything that I'm presenting is as important as I say. So embracing love, your toolkit for emotional management. So ironically enough, emotional management, right? So one of the things, especially coming out of 2020, that I know most of us are experiencing, a lot of emotions, because we've figured out ways in our day-to-day life, whether it's going running or doing yoga or whatever you're doing, there's ways we manage our emotions. Now, 2020, you're living with the people you're living with, everything's on top of you, learning new ways to manage emotions is super critical, correct? So I think that's one of the reasons I get so much anxiety, because I have coaching clients, I have tons of people I teach this, I teach in college, and whenever I see a big group, this stuff is so important to me because I know it works. I've watched my coaching clients literally change their lives based on these tools. They come back to me and they say, I don't know how I did this in life before this, so thank you so much for what you're sharing with me. Newfound clarity. One of the things that I'm going to teach you guys in a few minutes, we're going to talk about listen, observe, voice, and empathize, the acronym for love. And that's going to help you amplify your senses to see the world and feel the world and observe the world a little more clearly. And I'm pretty sure that everybody here would like to see and observe and feel a little more clearly, because this is a very confusing place right now. Whatever side of the coin you're on any political issue, any issue, we know that this has been a strange and stressful year. Let me figure out which one's there. I'm going to make this thing work. Okay, this isn't, let me figure it out. For some reason, it's not clicking. Yeah, maybe it's got to be a bit closer. Could have put it over that way, or? Is it working? While they're fixing that, I know what the next slide is, so I'll just share with you. So the question that I'm going to ask you guys, what is love? So we're talking about love. What is love to you? And I'm going to tell you a story of how I came up with what love means to me. So as a college professor, when I go into my students, the first day of class, I would typically ask them, I'd say, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you get out of here? And they'd say the same kinds of things. They'd say something along the lines of, I'm going to be a CEO, I'm going to be an owner of a big business, I'm going to open up my own restaurant. They always had dreams, and you see in their eyes that come alive. That was the first 3 or 4 years I taught. I've been teaching for 14 years. Then I noticed around 10 years ago, I asked that question, and they started saying, well, maybe, well, I don't know, well, I'm not sure, well, you know what might be cool? I was like, what's going on here? And I started to sense a shift in our youth. There was a lack of self-love. That was what I guessed. So I wanted to mess with them because I love social experiments. So the next semester, I walked into class, and I said, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Walked around the class, did this to the entire classroom. And then I'm like, all right, cool. So we got to do a stock project this semester, do this, do this. And then I just said, I'll see you on Wednesday. And then coming back on Wednesday, how do you think they felt? I'd always ask this question. How did you guys feel when? I couldn't finish the word when. 29 out of 30 hands went up. I was uncomfortable. And the one kid in the back who's a stoner goes, dude, that was so cool. I love that. And he always got an A somehow because he kept coming. He's like, I love this class. I love you, man. So this is what ended up happening. I asked him, I said, there's 2 reasons I could teach. 1, I just love to hear myself talk. Or 2, I really think I have something that I can share with you that's going to make you a much better human being, and it's that important to me. And so I said, why would I not love you if you're part of the process? And they're like, all right, we'll come back another day. And so they kept coming back, and by the end, everybody in that classroom would come in and be like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I really feel like that's something that we've missed in this world because everything we do is so extrinsically rewarding. It's, I'm competing with you. We say we're all here together, but we're always competing with one another. It's not, I'm going to share my brilliance with the world, so of course I love you. What's your brilliance? What's your gift? What do you have? And so what I want us to start doing is, and you can go to the next one. What I want us to start doing is for this session right now is think of the word love in more of the sense of agape. There's 8 different words for love in Greek, and agape is more of that selfless, unconditional love. It's that fiber that connects us, that consciousness. You know, you could call it source, God, whatever, but think of love in that big picture of what are we bringing here to find our brilliance to really contribute to this world? Does that make sense? Check it out, it's working. So one of the things I did, once I had my students tell me that they were so afraid of the word love, is I'm going to backtrack in a few minutes and tell you how I came up with the program, but I came up with a program called Go Love Now. And Go Love Now specifically, originally, was made for me to go into schools, and I got a bunch of great speakers. If you guys were listening to the song when you were coming in, we've got great rappers, singers. We've got such a good team behind us who really want to see people love themselves more and share their brilliance. So we went into the schools, and guess what happened? We went in and would say, you know, we want to make sure that you guys love yourselves more and work through trauma and all the things that we would love to see kids doing so it doesn't get to adulthood and then explode. Guess what happened? The kids were emotional. The kids were excited. The kids said, I want more. And the teacher said, no, this isn't working for them. And then we realized the problem really is, and I shouldn't even say problem, the issue, the concern is with the adults because we never managed our trauma. We haven't managed our emotions, and we think if we open them up, it's Pandora's box and everything's just going to go crazy. Does that make sense? So one of the questions that I asked the students, and we did one of those word clouds, I said, what does the word love mean to you? And you might not be able to read this too clearly, but number 1 was family. We had trust, caring, happy, heartbreak, fake, pain. So you hear there's a lot of different words. Some are very negative and some are very positive, which made me realize when I'm going and saying that to students, they're coming with their identity, something that they built up. So if you had a very negative experience with what you perceive to be love, I'm really freaking you out, right? So many lessons here. First of all, thank God that nobody reported me and got me kicked out of teaching or whatever because it wasn't meant that way. I don't do that anymore. Now I tell the story about it, and they appreciate that more. They're like, great story, thanks, Scott. But they don't have to go through it. But I want you guys to visualize this and think of, there's so many words that are very transparent that you know what they mean. Love is not one of them. Love is one of those words where everybody has a different definition. And so for today, let's just bring it to that more agape kind of love. So I always talk about the word autopilot. How do I get off autopilot, embrace love, and start connecting with this world more clearly? The word autopilot, I always give a very simple metaphor for you to look at because a lot of times people, remember these analogies, metaphors. So visualize this. Imagine that you grew up under this beautiful tree, absolutely beautiful tree, and there's a river next to that tree. And this beautiful tree has fed you fruit. It's sheltered you. This is the way home, back to the big tree. It's right next to a river. The river has bathed you. It has given you water. It has given you fish, everything you need. And so that tree is what you call home, or certainty, or the illusion of comfort. And so what happens when the world, life, because it's dynamic, starts moving? We'll call it the river. What happens when it starts rising? We're in a time right now where life is challenging us to realize that it's filled with uncertainty. It's filled with opportunity for beautiful, beautiful, beautiful change. But like we were talking about earlier, Shanice and I. Did I say your name right? Thank you. My brain's still frazzled. Shanice and I were talking about there's going to be more friction. There's going to be more chaos because there's so many people holding on to this tree of certainty saying, this is my home, this is yesterday, this is the way it's supposed to be, let's go back to the tree. Here's the true reality. The river is rising. The longer we hold on to that tree, the more chance we have of drowning because we're holding on to it, we're becoming exhausted. By the time we go in the river, it's not surrender. Everybody else is already gone. And here's the reality of existence. what happened yesterday, the systems of yesterday, the beliefs of yesterday, the identities that we created yesterday, we can start changing today, but it's got to happen in the dynamic nature of the river. Does that make sense? So something I teach my students, they're so sick of listening to it, it's ridiculous, but they can all recite it back to me very effectively. So if you guys have ever heard of Burning Man, I could ask who went, but then I'm going to know where the crazy people are, and we're going to have to, you guys sit there. And if you have gone or you appreciate Burning Man, thank you. This is a beautiful piece of art from Burning Man, and I love this piece of art. So it's two adults sitting back to back with their inner child saying, why are we not connecting? Where did the love go? And so I want to go back to that thing that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Our identities, listen to this, our identities have been built from day one in competition, feeding on extrinsic rewards. Once you're done with kindergarten, you go to first grade. It's an extrinsic reward. It's passing for the next grade, second grade, third grade. Who's the smartest? Who's in the gifted program? Who made the team? Who's the cheerleader? Who looks the best? It's just like exhausting. And so this comes from what we've put on our faces as this mask of what we're supposed to be. And so we're sitting here today thinking that we found our brilliance because maybe we're good at something. You know, we're a nurse, we're a teacher, we're a speaker, we're a chef, whatever we are. And the thing that just is so frustrating to watch is when I have people in my coaching program, I start talking to them time after time after time. I see these people and I realize you and I both know you're not sharing your brilliance. And there's a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And The 5 Regrets of the Dying really comes up and says one thing. 90-something% of people on their deathbed are going to say, I wish I lived life more for me. Not selfish me, not like I want stuff, I wanted people to give me more. No, sharing my brilliance, finding my purpose, delivering that to the world. And we've missed that opportunity for many of us. But it's never too late to start now. The story starts right now. So that's why I want to share this stuff with you guys, because I promise you this. You don't have to be afraid, and listen to this again, you don't have to be afraid of breaking down today's beliefs and shattering your identity. Because your purpose will, even it could shift quickly. I've watched people, I listen to people say they're a chef, and they're like, I'm definitely a chef, that's my purpose. And I'm like, okay. And so by the time they go through the program, we peel back the onion, we peel back the layers, and by the end I realize, no, that wasn't your purpose. That's a vehicle to deliver on your purpose. And we'll talk more about that at the end of this program. But I want you to think about this. When I asked the chef enough questions, they started saying, I like to bring these beautiful creations to people. Why? I like to see when people are sitting together and smiling. Why? I like to see people connect. And by the time we got down to it, it was, I like to create beautiful experiences that bring people together because we don't have enough connection in this world. I'm like, there you go. That's your brilliance. That's your purpose. You could do that through so many vehicles, but you've chosen chef. Thank you. So they were there, but not there for the reasons they wanted. And so one of the things we'll do through some of the exercise we're doing today is start to poke holes at this and start to look a little more deeply, because I can promise you everything starts today. The story starts today. Just because you're facing outward and there's people you're fighting with and you haven't addressed some of the inner child issues, we can start peeling back that old identity. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. This is what you should be doing. Your dad said, your mom said. As I'm saying that, you're hearing it going, all the stuff we've heard, right? We can start adjusting that today and build a better future starting now. The story literally starts now. So I'm going to share just a tiny bit about my story, and I'm going to do it from two spaces. Let's talk about Scott that the world knows, the masked Scott. Grows up, always in the gifted program, best athlete, super easy life, always laughing. Teachers let him get away with murder because he's funny and he's nice. He's a nice guy, so he could get away with more. Everyone's kind of irritated because he's that kid who gets away with stuff, right? So you either love him or hate him. Gets a scholarship for basketball for college, gets a scholarship to go to grad school. Life is so easy. Gets the best job, the beautiful wife, has 2 houses already paid off. Life looks good, right? You want that life. But it's all bullshit. One day I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, cool, so what's next? So I just got another mountain bike. I got another trip. I've got a cool car. It's great. It's great. I'm like, is this it? And that's where that love model came to me. One day I went to sleep at night. I had already done the work with those kids. I'd already done the work with the kids and asked the question about loving yourself. And I just went to sleep one night, and I was all the wrong way. I was on Ambien, because all business people are, we're running around trying to make a bunch of money, got to do this, got to do that. So I'm taking Ambien so I can get sleep, get up early, do more work, make more money, do more stuff. And I'm miserable. But I think it's great because I got all my stuff. And I wake up one morning, and I bought the domain name Go Love Now while I was on Ambien, which makes you kind of worry, like, what else did I do on these random nights? Like, I'm glad my wife still loves me. And I wrote down two things, the word love and the word fear. And I wrote love, listen more to your intuitive self. And that was the L. The O was observe. And then the V was voice, and I'm going to tell you more about these after. The E was empathize with all. And then the F in fear was forgive. The E was eliminate beliefs, programming, and needs that no longer serve you. How do you do that on Ambien, right? And then accept yourself and others where you or they are at in the journey, and finally empathize with all. This is seriously, I woke up and I'm like, it seems really cool. And I didn't know what it was, so I put it down, but I kept coming back to it. What I'm going to teach you guys today and share with you guys today is the simple fact that when we finally connect to Source, God, Creator, Universe, whatever you want to call it, it's your personal relationship. Whenever you finally connect to that space, that part of you that put you here, there's so much beauty when you clear out that conduit. And it's not a give me, I want, it's just listening and applying the knowledge. Listening and applying the knowledge. That's it. And it's telling us what our purpose is. It's telling us our role. It's telling us how beautiful we are. To that point of the kids facing, it's showing us that everything has always been competition with ourselves, not in a bad way, competition just to find our brilliance and share it. That's it. And we've just gotten lost. Now, like I said, the other could go over here. It doesn't matter. I could go over there and do the other side of Scott was just that sadness, that what's going on? Like, why am I doing the same old stuff again and again and again? And here's why. Because that was winning. Autopilot told me that I was winning. Because if I talked to anybody else, like, you've got everything, keep going, I would have been number one on that, 5 regrets of the dying. Because it was not for me. I don't care I think I care if I still get 30 points in a basketball game, because I'm like, I'm 50 and these kids are 18. Maybe I care a little bit, just a little bit. Maybe a lot, I don't know. But jokes aside, that's all that was driving me was here. And I would suggest all of us trying to get out of our minds and into our hearts today. Can we agree to that? So, the model, like I said, was listen, observe, voice, and empathize. And there's major emotions, and I'm just simplifying this so we can visualize those for today and just think about it. But the major emotions I want to think about are shame, fear, sadness, anger, and joy. 4 of those are perceived to be negative emotions, but I want to challenge us to think about this. Any emotion that we're supposed to feel in this existence has purpose, or it wouldn't be here, right? So if there's a moment of shame, not to wallow in that and compartmentalize and let it own us. So we don't want to sit here and say, I'm not good enough because I look like this, or I'm not smart enough, or we don't want to sit in a space of shame, but we want to recognize it. What was I supposed to learn from that? How do I process and how do I move through that? And that's some of the stuff that we're going to play with today, is working through these emotions. Because here's the deal. Whether it's through breath work, meditation, exercise, all the things that many of us have tried, or it could be some Western medicine, there's a lot of ways. There's no perfect way. There's no perfect way. Can we agree to that? Because I know I've done some breath work with people, and I've had some mind-blowing experiences, and then all of a sudden it stopped. I had those experiences, and I do better with meditation. Then sometimes it's just go play basketball for 5 days a week. And you've got to be aware of you. And that's, again, listening to that source, that conduit to source. So I want to challenge you guys to explore these emotions, think about those today. And by the way, all of these slides, write some of this stuff down, but I'll give all of these to you. I'll make sure that, Cindy or somebody gets all these to you guys so you have them, okay? So let's dive into listen right now. So listen to your heart, your intuitive self, and trust in your ability, AKA your infinite potential. One of the things that I challenge my students often, my coaching clients often, is to say, what can't you do? And you start listen, well, I could never play in the NBA, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do this. And they come up with things that are semi-grandiose, and you're like, all right, I can kind of see where you're going, but once you set any limit, and I know this is counterintuitive in a way, because we think those limits redirect us. We think saying, well, I can't play in the NBA, so basketball's not for me. Or I can't, be a jockey because I'm too tall, but I love horses. We all know there's a million other things you can do within that space that might reward you just as much. But we start setting limits, and so think of this. If this is your own story that starts today, and I put these limits around me, who's stopping me from growing? I'm going to tell you a story that I used to do in one of my first programs. It was called Extreme Balance, and it was getting people to live life to the fullest. And I would ask a question right as the program started. I would say, tell me something that you used to do that you love that you no longer do for whatever reason. You'd say, play the piano. You'd say, I used to run a lot. You'd say, I was a great artist. You'd say, I used to do a lot of baking. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. So we talk about it for a few minutes. Then we go through all the content of the program, all the tools that they can use. And right before we leave, I'd say something like, along the lines of it go, you know that Shanice has a magic skill? You guys are like, what's the magic skill? She hasn't told you, but she actually controls time for the universe. She can add a 25th hour of the day. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? Guess what everybody says? Sleep, finish work. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Nobody ever, when I say nobody ever, I mean nobody ever said the thing they said they wish they could do again. So we just gave them the time. We literally said, here's the time to do the thing you just said you want to do. So who's the reason that you're not living the life of your dreams? And listen, I get it. Listen, I went to graduate school while working full-time and doing 50,000 things, and you think, well, I would just sleep. But here's the thing. When you create this massively busy schedule, is it truly advancing you? Because if you're not filling your cup up and loving yourself enough, are you even capable of doing all these things that you think you want to do, or are you just going to crash and burn later? And so there is a balance, and we'll talk about that. So here's something I would like to do, and then the second part of that is, while recognizing and listening to the teachers in this world who are always offering lessons, the second piece I want you guys to think about here is that every single person you meet, and this is a new way to look at things, every single person you meet is your angel, your teacher, a lesson bearer. It's somebody who's got something to teach you. Because how many times do you go somewhere and you can see what happens? Let's say, for example, you wanted to talk to me because I was a speaker. Everyone runs over to you because there's something to get from that person in that moment. And you can feel it. Everyone knows. You're like, oh, you just wanted this, you wanted this. I challenge you to go to the person nobody's talking to, but you made eye contact with, or you bumped into in the elevator, whether you had pants on or not. It would have been awkward, but so be it. Awkward moments. I mean, some of the best friends you know started with awkward moments, right? Pants-free elevator meetings. But so jokes aside, though, what I really want you guys to do, and we're going to do it after this exercise, is start thinking about going up to the person you won't go up to and just connect with them. Because think of this. If we're in this beautiful puzzle, this opportunity to build this beautiful puzzle, or this story starting right now, you guys were not made here as, there's no such thing as extras like in movies. Everybody here has a purpose. We're different perspective points that bring a different experience and an opportunity to learn. And then people might say, well, I don't like those type of people. Even more of a reason to talk to that person. If they trigger you, take it personally. It's a growth op. It's a growth opportunity. And as I say that, I'm picturing people that I don't like going, damn it, I keep saying this stuff, now I got to do it. Because I'm not telling you it's easy, and I'm not telling you I succeed all the time. I'm telling you I try. I'm aware, and I practice it. And 9 times out of 10, once in a while you screw up, but 9 times out of 10, those interactions become massively beneficial because you learn something and your perspective grows. So think about that. So here's something I'd love to do with you guys right now. I want to do a quick guided meditation because I think that a lot of us, by chance, because we're on autopilot, busy, we're not dialing into source. So in my coaching program, I actually give out guided meditations that are significantly longer than this, and that's part of the program. And people have a lot of really good reactions to that. So let's close our eyes. It'll just be for a few minutes. And I also challenge you, too, if this triggers you or you don't like it, picture me as that person. Take that opportunity. So let's just focus on our breath for a moment. And remember this. Without breath, we don't have life. Therefore, breath could be called creator, source, God, whatever you believe it to be. So we're going to do a count from 5 to 1, taking deep breaths and walking our way to source, God, universe, creator. And we're just going to take a walk to that being. So let's take a deep breath in. And release. That's 5. Deep breath in. And release. That's 4. Deep breath in. And release. That's 3. A deep breath in. And release. That's 2. One more deep breath in. And release. Just take note of your breath now. You are there at source. And you see a cave in front of you. And even though you're experiencing a little bit of fear, you take steps and you walk into that cave. And in the darkness, a silhouette appears. And you're wondering who this being is. But you don't like the look of them. Their face, their body, their hair, their energy. Who is this person? And then they say to you, you are enough. I love you. And they disappear. You keep walking, feeling a little bit judgmental, wondering what's next. As you're walking, another silhouette appears. Same feelings. I don't like their hair. I don't like their face, their body. Something bothers me. And then they say, I love you. I recognize your infinite potential. I love you. Then you feel a little bit of shame almost. Why am I judging? You take a few more steps, and there's a silhouette again. And now, you try not to. You try not to judge. But you do it again, and they speak. You are exactly where you are supposed to be right now in this world. Your story starts now. You feel a little bit better, and you turn and you start to walk out of the cave. And you decide you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now in this world. and you make a decision to return back to where you are. So we're going to count from 1 to 5 and come back to where we're at. Deep breath in. On the release. That's 1. Deep breath in. And release. That's 2. Deep breath in. That's 3. And another deep breath in. That's 4. And one final deep breath in. And release. And just notice your breath. And come back here to that perfect day where you're learning all these amazing things and connecting with all these beautiful people. How do you guys feel from that? Any thoughts, feelings? Does anybody here meditate a lot? How many people meditate here a lot? Good. How many people would meditate, but they're not sure what it's all about? They're just kind of like, I don't know, just convince me. Any of those people? Okay. It's fair. It's fair. So, what did you guys feel? Anything specific? Anybody want to share? Lightheaded? Totally. So, you know what's interesting? If you guys have ever done breath work, like real aggressive, real breath work, you'll walk away very lightheaded. And one of the things that's interesting with breath work, in addition to meditation, is a lot of DMT is built in your lungs. It's also built in the pineal gland. So what ends up happening is you're getting a DMT rush, which is really a ego death. When people take ayahuasca and go on these journeys, what's happening is you're getting a dump of DMT, which is the same thing that happens when you pass away. So you can't differentiate, did I die? Or did I die? Or did I die? Like, you're not even sure what happened. So you're literally connected to source in such a deep way. So anytime we focus on breathing or get a little lightheaded, it's truly an opportunity to get micro DMT dumps to connect to source. So it's actually how we're clearing out the conduit from a science standpoint. Does that make sense? So yeah, you just did some DMT, if anybody asks what you did today. You got high from your own supply. Not even illegal. And it was free. Now, if you ever get to explore real breath work, it's pretty amazing. So I wanted you guys just to do that, just to play with the idea of meditation. One thing that I can do, and I'll share with Cindy or whoever's going to send information back to you guys, if you haven't done meditation ever before, as part of listening more closely to source, I would suggest there's one called the meditation bell. It's 5 minutes and 25 seconds. And what it's doing is there's a bell that resonates. And so there's 2 things you can do when you meditate to try to get to a space of relaxation, connection. And one is focus on breath, and the other is to focus on some sort of mantra. So the mantra piece from the meditation bell going like gong, that you'll start to focus on that. Plus, as you're focusing on your breath, like we were just doing, there are 2 things to focus on. Then guess what you don't focus on? The thoughts. You'd never try to stop the thoughts during meditation. When people say they want to go to a space where you stop thoughts, thoughts are part of our existence. We're the observer. These thoughts are going on. So if we can just sit in the middle of the storm, that's what you're doing. The storm goes on around you, and you're focused on breathing, source, God, universe, and you're listening to a nice song, a little gong going on, and suddenly you go to that space of peace. And so if you guys ever want to contact me or whatever, I'm going to give my info at the end. I'd be more than happy to give you guys some directions on how to use that. But it's super, super useful. Helpful? Cool. So one of the things that I think would be a great idea for you guys to do after, we won't do it right now, but think of ways that you can force yourself into the discomfort of connecting to people that you typically wouldn't, and look for those teachers and those angels. But this is what I would do. If you bump into somebody and you're like, there goes that person that always does that again, there's always somebody doing that. Get over to that person. Because life is begging you. Life is going, it's doing the little jab, and you're going, didn't feel it. Then it gives you a little, you're like, didn't feel it. Eventually, it's a freight train. You're like, come on, are you serious? It was poking. It was jabbing. That person is bringing you a lesson. And the reason you're triggered and irritated, there's a lesson behind it. One of the things I tell my students all the time is, hey, if you don't like me or I irritate you or I trigger you, that's about you, not me. Figure out what it is. Figure it out. Like, what is it that's making me so frustrating to you? Does that make sense? And it's a hard thing to swallow because we want to think, yeah, but that person does this, or they're so loud, or they're so obnoxious, or they always lie. Okay, well, why are you so afraid of lying? And then all of a sudden you get deep with the person like, well, my mother lied, and sometimes I lie, and I'm not a liar. Ah, I see where we're going. So it's not me. So the next piece is observe. So notice what we said there. There's two components to listen. There's listen more closely to your intuitive self. There's the inward, connecting to source. And then listen to the angels, the teachers, the perspective points that are all among us. Because they're both teaching us lessons nonstop. So it's more listening than asking and talking. Fair? So observe. Become an active observer versus a passive observer. Beware of your needs, self-nurture, so you have the energy and capacity to be in service to others, your cup overflowing. So what we want to do here, and we'll do another simple exercise. I know you guys know this because you're doing this work. A lot of issues, and we see it more and more in chronic illness today, are housed in the body. So we have emotions that we build up, right? We compartmentalize. Fear, anger, sadness. When we look at cancer, I just lost my father-in-law to cancer. Like when we leave tomorrow, we're having a celebration for his life on Friday. And I have another friend who had throat cancer who's lived. I've got another buddy who's in chemo. So many people right now. We've got 2 clients. I mean, it's just like, I feel like everyone's got cancer. When you look at the type of cancer and you start to look at their lifestyle, I don't want to say anything, but I'm going to say it to you because you don't know who this person is. My friend who had throat cancer, guess what? His wife, nonstop barking at him. He never says anything. And he does it because she inherited a bunch of money, and I watch the relationship, and I'm like, how ironic that in your throat chakra, your throat energy center, you get cancer. You're not speaking. Or when we look at people who have colon or intestinal, and you realize, oh my God, they were an emotional mess. And so you start to look at there's correlations between emotions being stored and chronic illness. And so here's what I want you guys to do right now. We did a little connecting to source, trying to just go inward. Let's just do something for our bodies that's super simple. Just a little check-in. Let's just take our hands, just squeeze. Probably all cramping up because we haven't done anything in a year. And release. So one of the things with breath work is people have dinosaur hands. In the breath work, you start breathing, you start going like this. Like if anyone's watching you doing it, you're like, oh, a T-Rex. So it's true. It's actually weird. People are like, is this normal? I'm like, no. Yeah, it is. I'm just kidding. So let's do it one more time. Let's squeeze and then release. And just notice, like we know that we're energy, right? We know that we're energy. So let some of that negative energy. Now let's just take our forearms and just squeeze, flex your forearms. And just release. It's nice. Let's do it one more time. Just a little squeeze. We can all go out to the beach later and we can be like, there's the beach over there. So and just kind of just wipe off that negative energy. And you can feel like the difference in the lightness, right? A little difference in your body. Let's do the same thing. Let's do biceps real quick. I mean, if we're going to go to the beach, let's do the whole thing right. And just release. Let's get those tries in. Do these for Arnold. Straighten the arms, just flex the tries. And then shake the whole arm out. And you can literally feel like the difference. You feel like as your body's moving up. And so the reason I want you guys to just start doing stuff like this, and we can do the whole body. One of the things that's actually a great way if you have sleep trouble, and again, like I said, it's not one size fits all. Some people might need Ambien. I don't recommend it unless I do. I recommended it one night. One night, I wrote some good stuff. The rest of it, I'd say no. It kind of sucks because I almost feel like I have to do an Ambien endorsement for this program, but I don't like Ambien. So maybe I'm going to lie for now and say I was on this really deep dose of melatonin. In fact, that's the new story. So clip that part. I'm changing the story. But what I want you guys to think about is self-nurture is the active observer piece for self. And so we know that we can never overflow our cup and be in service to others until we take care of ourselves. One of the things that I always share is my mom was a beautiful woman, still is, she's here. She was a beautiful woman who did so much for me. So a single mom saying, I'm going to buy you pants, I'm going to make sure you have dinner, I'm going to do all these things for you. And she's thinking that she's doing the best for her child. But what do you think I saw as a child? I saw to be a good person, you have to give and give and give to others while you're depleted. So she's trying to do this beautiful thing for me, making sure, and then I had this massive guilt because she'd buy me a new pair of Levi's, and I'm on the schoolyard because I'm a boy, and I decide in kickball I'm going to slide into home because why wouldn't you on concrete? Because I want to win because I'm told winning matters. And I'm like, oh crap, I did it again. And so I'm constantly ripping my pants, and I'm filled with guilt. So I'm this miserable, inside feeling horrible, like I'm so sorry. And she's telling me to work your butt off for others, getting nothing in return without realizing that. Does that make sense? So this is that piece where let's fill up our cup, doing little things to do a body check-in. Is there a place I need to release energy? What's the thing that you do to help release? Is it go for a walk? Is it go for a jog? Is it sing? Do those things. Do those self-nurture things. Deep down inside, you're like, I drink soda because I like it. Cool. Okay. Is it good for you? Is it helping you? Is there any benefit to it? And I know somebody's going, all right, this isn't funny. I drink soda, leave me alone. My point is the things that you're doing that you know could make a massive shift in who you are in a self-nurture piece, take one or two of them. Don't do it all at once because then you're just going to hate yourself, realistically. When people try to do this, I'm changing everything now. You're going to lose your mind. We know it. So just replace water with soda, add veggies to your meal, simple little things to take care of yourself. The second piece, and this is the exercise I want you guys to do, just take a few minutes, is how do we become an active observer for others? And so what I think is important is finding the little things that we can do that change people's life. This is the best group to be speaking to because you know this. One of the things I talk about all the time is anybody who almost committed suicide says the same thing. One person said or did one thing. And then when you ask what that one thing is, you think it's going to be huge. And they're like, they held the door and said, you look nice. And you're like, seriously? Yeah, seriously. So when we think we're powerless, that is not true. One story I didn't tell you guys, and I'll share with you right now. It's probably the first time I've ever shared this on a stage because we've been in COVID. 2 years ago, we were in Thailand, living that good life. And the guy sitting right here with my 12-year-old daughter at the time. So I'm sitting in Thailand. I'm on top of the most beautiful hotel in Thailand. Got people bringing me drinks, and I'm looking down. What do you think I was thinking? I want to jump off this mother blanking building. I'm really thinking about it. Because I'm like, what is wrong with people? What's wrong with humanity? And guess what brought me back? Guess what made me get out of that thought? Would you like another drink, Mr. Goyette? All right. Whatever it takes. And I did get another drink. It was some blue-colored cool drink from Thailand. But all jokes aside, I remember crying the next day. My wife's she was yelling at me about something. Not even yelling. I mean, she's like, why did you say that to Kayla? I'm like, well, you just shut up. I'm like, I got a lot, I just don't even want to be here. She's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, and I realized I compartmentalize my emotions. Why? I just told you. My mom taught me to be strong unintentionally, because how do we really learn? We learn from the modeling of others' behaviors, right? So you see a person, bless you. We see a person that we see as somebody that we want to learn from, and we build our identity unintentionally based on the actions of others. And so what I really want you guys to really think about is in this active observer piece, and let's take a few minutes. What are some little things that you could do, because you are that powerful, that you can go out and do today, tomorrow? And I'll give you one more example. A friend of mine was driving down the street with me one time when I first moved to Austin, and I said, I think I'd been there 2 years. And I'm like, you know what sucks? When we first moved here, there was no trash on the side of the road. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, all these people throwing trash on the side of the road. He goes, oh, you see that? And I go, yeah. He goes, then shut up. I'm like, what do you mean shut up? And he goes, you saw it, you could go pick it up. I'm like, but I didn't do it. He's like, okay, you just need to shut up because you see it. Now you're as much a part of the problem. When you know there's a problem, you do nothing to change it, you might just want to shut up. And I love this kid. He's one, and I say kid because from Boston originally. You could be 75. Oh, I love that kid. We're all kids. Keeps us youthful. And he's an amazing person. Ended up writing a book called Blame Drew. And the whole point was, you want to blame somebody, blame me. And so he kept saying, just start taking note. If you see something, what can you do about it? So maybe it's you see somebody having a bad day or whatever, and normally you go, I got enough crap on my plate. You walk by him. Just check in and be like, how you doing, Phil? What's going on? Just whatever. Maybe it's pick up a piece of trash. Maybe it's hold the door and smile. Jot down a few of those. And if you guys want to do this more, when you get back, what do we have for time right this second? I just want to. What time is it right now? I want to see. 11:10? Okay. All right, so why don't we jot down a few of those tonight, or if you want to do a few right now. But I would also suggest, if one of those ideas resonated or whatever, go take action to connect with somebody or pick up the piece of trash. Because here's the thing. I want you guys to think about this too. I have a model that I would share with people, and it's called victim, sophomore, savior, player. And you've seen that triangular model. What is it? Victim, perpetrator, savior, whatever. I don't think that was complete. I think what happens is we all know the people who are victims who say, I can't because, and they're limit creators, and they've put themselves in a box with some real reasons. But when we take those reasons and we allow them to last indefinitely and become excuses, that's when we hold victim status. The sophomore sits and goes, at least I'm not a victim. Look at all your victims. And so just because they got out of victim status, they've got their back to the light. Then the savior comes in, and the savior goes, got it all figured out, read 20 books, and I am ready to save the planet. I'm going to become a teacher and show you. And they just talk and talk and talk. Where we're really trying to get is past that. Because the real savior, the real teacher is the player. You just play. I was saying about my mom, you just come out and play the game. Like, what if my mom was like, hey, I'm going to go get my nails done and go to the gym real quick, and we come back, we're going to throw a ball, but I got to do something for me first. I'm going to go do this. And she just does her thing. At dinner, she's laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing about? She goes, I'm laughing because we have money to eat dinner, and I like dinner. And they're teaching you by their example, by playing. They're being the light. So my point is, you don't have to know anything. You don't have to be great at anything. The places you think your brilliance are needed, like, well, I'm a nurse, and I know this, or I'm this, and I do this, or I'm a counselor, and I do this, and I got 25 degrees, and I just got a new training. That's not where your brilliance is occurring. That's a beautiful vehicle to share your brilliance, just like the chef. But your brilliance is happening where I'm saying, thanks so much for coming today, because we know COVID was scary. We know maybe we all just wanted to get out, but some people are still saying, should I go, should I go, should I go? You made a decision to go. You're doing things. You're stepping out. It's moments where you come, you connect and you touch another's life. I mean, that's everything. It doesn't need to come with a skill set. It just needs to come from one heart to another. Fair enough? And then we've got V. So V is for voice. So again, if you notice, like I said, they're all senses. So it's listen, observe, voice, and empathize, connecting with the heart. So this is ways we amplify our senses to connect more deeply to this world. So monitor your inner voice and notice what you're saying to yourself. Is your inner critic limiting your growth? Once you adjust your inner voice, it becomes natural to be more positive towards others. Your words truly shape your world. So I wanted to show you one more thing. And one thing I didn't share with you, I love learning. Like, I'm like one of these crazy learners. So somebody tells me about a new thing or I've gone to Bali, I've gone to Colombia, I've gone to Peru, I've been in South Africa with shaman and spent a week just being teach me stuff. This past year, we sat with a Native American shaman, and my wife and I are both level 1 shamans. We're like, teach me everything you know. And so we just want to listen. So I've really been on the research, to figure out what are the commonalities of all religions, all beliefs, all healers, and what are we missing? What's getting caught? What's getting caught and really, it's like we said, it comes down to love. It's energy. Just share your brilliance, do the right things. But one of the beautiful things that I found that I wanted to share with you guys, in shamanic understanding, all words are spells, hence spelling. There's a spelling too, it's a spell. Everything we think or say cascades into reality. When I repeat to myself the thought that I am not that smart or beautiful or deserving, I'm literally cursing myself. Those thoughts go out into the world and bring me situations and outcomes that prove the thoughts. Let's watch our words today and become aware of how words affect our bodies and our lives. So I cannot say this enough. I cannot say this enough. You've got an identity that has been built and has been spoken in your inner critic, thinking it's your voice. It's not your voice. The gym teacher, you're not an athlete. Your mom or your dad, you're not as smart as your brother. The teacher, well, we might have to hold you back because you're not that bright, or whatever. And then you turn into your voice, well, how could I do that? And then limits are formed. And we have no comprehension at this point to really believe that we can start writing our own story today. So how do we reprogram that inner critic? Let's get uncomfortable. Let's do something right now that I think will benefit all of you guys. And this is an exercise we can do in class. I want you to just start writing for, say, 3 minutes, a descriptor list of adjectives about somebody who's a great friend or somebody you admire. And then we're going to share a few of these lists. So trustworthy, funny, whatever, just a descriptor list of, a good friend. And you guys do that however you want. Just take 3 minutes to do that. Go. Sorry about that. You know what it was? I flipped. Sorry. Yeah, I turned it off in case I sneeze or something while you guys were doing that. So I forgot to turn it back on. Technical difficulties created by me. But I want you guys to really think about that. So you've got all the voices that are saying all these things to you. Why is it so hard for you to say the good things about yourself? Why can't we realize that there needs to be no negativity coming with the mistakes that we make, right? Those are just growth opportunities, learning opportunities, right? But we just beat ourselves up. What if we could be more transparent, vulnerable, and authentic with one another, and we could say, yeah, I lied about that. I think what happens is we start to create that fictitious, outside identity, that mask, and we want everybody to think that we're this amazing person, and then that just explodes. And we all do it to some extent. So how do we fix that? Start today, right? We're writing a new story starting today. So here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do, and then I'm going to ask if anybody's willing to share it. And this is a scary thing to do, but it would be a super powerful opportunity if willing. Write a love letter to yourself and try to use some of those beautiful words you wrote about your friend. And write this letter in the format that you would say it into the mirror about yourself. Scott, I love you because you're trustworthy. Scott, I love you because. Write it in any form you want. You feel poetic, if that's part of your brilliance, get some good poetry out there. But just take 5 minutes to write a nice love letter to yourself, and whoever's willing to share their love letter will get a book. I don't know whose book, but I found some books earlier at the library that I stole, and whose book. I'll give you something. I'll give you some piece of candy or something I stole when I was 5. We'll get you something. But take time to write that love letter to yourself. And write this, do this seriously, and do this tonight at home. Look at yourself in the mirror and say this to yourself. It's the most horrifying experience you'll ever, even if you're somebody who thinks you're okay with this, do it. There'll be some tears. There'll be some, I can't say it. That's okay. Because that's one of the ways we're talking about processing emotions. There's a beautiful way to do it. So write your love letter. Do you guys need another minute? Okay. And any of these exercises that we're doing, definitely take them home and finish them up. I think amplifying all these senses is, I've watched this play out. It's super useful. And just so you guys, I want you to think about this too. It's really hard to do a lot of this in this big of a session. This is just a dabbling, a sampling to just get you to think about this stuff and then kind of go do some of the work. Because we do this over a course of 12 weeks on both the love and the fear model, and every week you have exercises and meditations. And what happens is, like clockwork, imagine if we're only working on this for 1 week. And you've got a meditation that syncs up, plus you've got a few exercises, and you've got an accountability partner. It's clockwork. Yeah, I didn't really need this. Yeah, it's nice. Oh my God. And then boom. And I don't know what day it is, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And it depends on the lesson, because everybody has a different space. They haven't worked through something. And then it's this explosion. They're like, my whole life changed. And I'm like, perfect. And the reason we break it up over the course of a week with each focus is, in real life, what do? Whichever one of these would bother us most, we say, I don't need that, and we move on really quick because we're like, ooh, that one's going to open up a can of worms. That's Pandora's box. Deep down, we're like, no, I'm not going there. And then when you go there, you realize if you go there in a safe environment and you go there in a space with opportunity to grow instead of being criticized, but instead being loved in that environment, you realize, wow, why didn't I do that earlier? Why haven't I taken the time to explore that? And here's the reason. Autopilot, intentional, busy, like we talked about right in the beginning. We get stuck saying, I have to do this, I have to do that. You don't understand, your life's different than mine. You're not talking to me, you're talking to you when you're saying that. Does that make sense? Who would like to share their, let's do it. Do you want to come up to the mic, or do you want it's up to you? Okay. My wife says I have the same one. I got you.
Can you hear me over there? Yeah. Okay. My love letter. Michael, I love you because even when people say you should be a certain way, you stay true to yourself. You try your hardest to be honest and understanding, even though you fail sometimes. It may be a hard thing, but you try to be not judgmental. Humble, lively, and funny. You are willing to serve and to be a patient listener in a realistic way. Lastly, you love yourself.
Thank you, Michael. That was awesome. Sorry, I'm slow. I got the foot issue. I would jump over the tables typically. I'd probably fall again. That's probably why I got a broken toe, but whatever. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I signed it, but I'll put your name on it top after. Thank you. Anybody else want to share? Oh, we got a lot of people. Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead. You guys are the great group. Everyone's like, I don't want to do it. You just
It says, I love you because you chose growth over being right. You're strong because your friends and life matter. Because you chose right over pain. Because in weakness you found strength, and in love you found the world.
I love that. That was beautiful. I only have 2 books, but would anybody else like to share? Because I'd rather spend time on this. I can rush the next exercise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You want to go? You go, and then we'll go. Is that fair?
Heather, you're all right. You're okay. You're kind of funny. You like to play. I love you, Heather, even though you get scared. For the most part, though, you're generally well prepared. I love you, Heather. God, this is weird. For trying your best and overcoming fear. I love you, Heather. You make people laugh. You bring joy to your kids and truly care about your staff. I love you, Heather. Despite your shortcomings, you are keeping on, keeping going, and overcoming.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Robert, I love you because despite the uncertainty the world can be, you're annoyingly intentional to keep moving forward. You are never one that needs to be right, but present, learning, growing, and always moving forward. The one constant in life is change, and Rob, you've been able to do this.
I love it. Thank you so much, Robert. Anybody else? You're good.
Hi guys, I wanted to go because I feel like this will be a final step of healing for me. And I did write a love letter, but I started it by saying, Ashley, I forgive you for your past episodes of self-destruction. I love you because you had the courage to fight off self-doubt and to surrender to self-love during a time of darkness. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I do a quick hug? Thank you. You're awesome. Love you. Who else do we got? I'm going to go here and then here. I'll just keep it moving.
I love you because you are integral enough to admit your flaws. You're wise because you understand that you don't know everything. You're temperate in the fact that you haven't given up on yourself. Righteousness resides in your faith, not your meritorious deeds, and your willingness to give and draw your soul to others is what makes me love you.
Thank you. And we had somebody in the middle.
Dear me, I was a kindergarten teacher, so I bet you can all I know people can always count on you because you are dependable. Your intelligence is beyond what you ever imagined it could be. Adding humor to your day daily is what keeps you grounded and going. Often your honesty is not taken as a positive, but you cannot do it any other way. You are a natural leader with the intention to always be fair to others at all times. Building consensus, not majority rule, is in your blood. You treasure honor and bestow it at every chance you get, like saying thank you for serving when you see the military cap. Your sense of loyalty will not always be returned to you. Remain loyal anyway. You appreciate heritage, family, and other social justice warriors as you move into your retirement.
Thank you. I love it. Is there anybody else who wants to share? Got one more.
John, I love you because you have reached that point in your life when you have gained the wisdom and understanding that it is far more important to have happiness, to want what you have rather than having what you want.
Amen. So, is that the last one? So that's actually perfect to end on that because literally the baseline of all of this that we're talking about is gratitude. It literally is gratitude. You know, before we can jump in, think of everything that we're speaking about, emotional management, finding purpose, falling in love with yourself. That starts with a baseline of gratitude of saying, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm existing. There's a conduit that takes me directly to source, creator, God, whatever your belief is there. And I have all the ability with zero limits, because those have literally been built or accepted by me. And so once you just say, I'm totally happy where I'm at, but I'm going to keep building more, that's it. That's it. And it, honestly, I have a few friends who are a few years older than me or mentors who pretty much smack me silly making sure that I listen to that. So I thank them and all of you guys for that. But we've got to listen to it and embody it now. That gratitude is literally everything. And I see people speak these things oftentimes, and they don't always mean them. Mean it. Don't just say, I heard gratitude is the foundation of life, and that's what I mean. Just do it. Because you know, you got the friends on Facebook who send the memes out and they say all this stuff, and you're like, that ain't you, dude. Right? You're like, did you just write that? So I'm not going to tease my mom too much, but I will say this. She listens to our Friday night show, and she'll say stuff, come on there in the comments and go, I taught him that, and I'm like, yeah, Mom. Hey, listen, as long as, if she can speak it and she's doing it, let her think she got it wherever she wanted. I could care less, because if she becomes it, then you could take full ownership and full credit for it. I don't care. I just sometimes have to just go, okay, okay. So I would go do that at home. And then what I was saying earlier is with voice. So read your love letter at home in the mirror. I highly recommend doing it. Do it a few times. Sometimes you do it once and you're like, okay, and then the next day you do it and you're in tears or something comes up, look for those emotions. Like, see what was blocked, what was there. You know, because it's hard. And reprogramming that inner critic is no easy task because it's kind of like, you know, people talk about losing weight or getting strong, whatever. How long did it take you to get to this place, this shift? That inner critic has been directing your existence for a long time. Now, removing limits, saying, sure, but I can absolutely fix this, and I can make my inner critic speak and cast spells that are beautiful starting right now. You know, another thing that we haven't talked about, and these are, again, big parts of this whole picture, is the people you hang out with. You know, we always talk about, that's one thing we talk extensively in the last week of the program, is who you're surrounding yourself with. And we teach people how to create a team that literally is in service to them finding their brilliance and sharing their purpose. And it's super, it's a hard piece. I mean, how many people here have literally just said, I'm no longer friends with somebody, or I'm no longer associating with that family member, even though everyone goes, blood is thicker than water, or all the stuff everyone's saying, or you've known them for life, and you're going to sacrifice that? It's like, I'm doing just the opposite. I have fully evolved, right? And that person is sitting there literally trying to be an energy vampire and destroy me. So it's the opposite of what you think. If that person needed my help, I would still go help them. I still love them. But I'm not allowing my energy to be attached to their destruction because they choose to be where they're at. You're welcome to come with me at any moment. Does anybody feel that? And that's one of the hardest parts of life is the first part of the program that I do is it's all awakening the senses. The second part, we call it taking flight. It's dropping the baggage. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but we've got one more exercise we got to run through. So this exercise, I can give it to you. We'll do the first part now, and then I'm going to give you the second part to take home. So the final piece is empathy, and that's that heart connection. So it's empathizing with people. Every single human being on this planet comes here with a different experience. So when we look at somebody and say, how could you possibly? Well, no different than an algebra equation. There's different variables built in. So when we look at those different variables, we're going to have a different answer. And then sometimes you say, but two people in the same household, how do they have two different? There's variables that are seen and unseen. Maybe that person had a traumatic experience. Maybe that person, you know, the DNA is just a little different. There's other variables. So the point is, when we look at somebody and say, you've got to be an idiot to believe that. What's wrong with you? Listen, we all do it. We're like, this doesn't make sense. Your parents didn't raise you that way. What's wrong with you? If you're so smart, why are you? And we do it. Here's the thing. One of the most difficult things we can do, but one of the most powerful things we can do, is truly conceptualize the reality that it's our journey. Our journey, individual journey. So if we get stuck in victim, we're going to crucify those people because we're going to say, you're horrible. If we get stuck in that sophomore, that space of the wise fool, we're going to say, at least I'm not the victim. If we get stuck in savior, we're going to be telling everyone what's wrong with them. If you only did this, if you only did this. Once you break that plane and you go into that player mode, here's the thing. If I walked around right now, you know what you need to do? You know what you need to do? Hey, listen, this is what you need to do. As I'm saying it, you're going, I want to punch you in the face. Don't tell me what I need to do. Human nature, the minute you say what you need to do, you're like, done. But what if I'm doing it and you're going, that's not who you used to be. You were crazy in high school. What's wrong with you? I'm like, that's cool. And you just keep doing it. Then they're like, think of this, like what's a good sales pitch? If I want you to buy my weight loss product and I go, you need to lose weight, you need to look better, you need to do this, I lost. What if I just say, you know what was the coolest thing? When I lost 50 pounds and now I'm doing all these great things, and don't worry about it. Then you guys like, no, sit down. That's the game. That's player versus savior. So let's move into that player space. So here's what I'm going to have you guys do. I want you guys very quickly, and I'm going to give you the second part of the exercise to do later just in the sake of time, but I want you to write down 10 things, or at least 5 or 6 just to start, negative things or things about the person who drives you the most crazy. So as I just said that, you know, if you saw your mom, a spouse, an ex, a kid, or a teacher, or whoever, that person in your life that drives you the most crazy, I want you to write 10 things about them that drive you nuts. You know, so let's say, you know, if it's a kid, never on time, not grateful, well, just start writing those things down. There we go. I keep turning it off so I don't make noise, and I realize it's off. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to just tell you what we're going to do with this exercise, so you guys can finish this on your own. But usually, and it depends. Some people are in different spaces with their healing processes. Some people don't have that somebody that they're blaming a lot. But some of us have that person that as soon as I said the person who drives you the most crazy, that picture was there. And sometimes it's two people. So when you're writing the things that are perceived negative, they always do this, they always do this, I want you guys to make that list as long as you can, and then put your own name on the top of that list. And ask yourself, what are the things that are triggering me within this? Now, here's what people end up saying. I hated this when somebody first said a similar exercise. I'm like, but I'm not that. You might not be. Are you afraid of becoming that? Is there somebody in your family in your DNA? Is this something that really upsets you because of, just think about it. Put your name on it and say, how does this apply to me? Why do these things trigger me so much? Like if you're somebody who hates liars, and you're like, I'm honest, I hate liars. Just like the chef getting deeper, there's a reason for that. You don't hate liars. Something happened in your life that made you say, this is not the way this world's supposed to be. It's a human being. One of their mechanisms is lying for whatever reason. They're a human and they're making some mistakes. So my thought would be just play with this and look at that list and see where you can grow from that. The second thing I want you to do is write a list of positives about that person. And you can't write things like they have 2 arms, they breathe. Like I don't know, they have shoes that aren't sandals, they wear pants in elevators, those don't count. I don't even know if that's a positive, wearing pants in elevators anyway. I'm just putting it out there. But put the positives of that person. And the reason I want you to do that is because this is an opportunity for empathy, to be a little more kind to other people and realize, okay, you're right, they are on time. Okay, they are a hard worker. Okay, find those things in them. And usually you start to go, maybe there's something that I missed in this person. Because what happens is once we create that label of somebody, or that's what they are, we keep casting those spells and saying, you're this, you're this, you're this, and we intensify it and we make it the reality. So here's an opportunity to do 2 things. 1, explore what upsets you in that person so much, and 2, try to see the positive. Now, we could go really deep. When we do the exercise and the coaching, we can go deep with this. Play with this exercise for yourself because there's value in it. Okay? And we only have a few minutes, so I want to go quick. So the second part of this program that we're not going to do, but I want you guys to be aware of it, is what we would typically do in any kind of a coaching program is we go through all the sense amplification part of love, and then the fear is where we really release all those old things that are going on. So it's forgiving yourself and others for things that have occurred in life, those things that we're holding on to, and getting rid of that negative emotional attachment, and then eliminating beliefs, needs, and programming that no longer serves you. And that is hugely powerful for many people. And I can't go into all the details because we don't have time, but just to imagine, what if you dropped believing that you had to be something and you literally could break away from that and just be? If you could literally break away from that, and there's techniques and ways to do it, and when I watch it happen, my favorite cry comes from this one. When people cry in here and go, why am I doing this? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, I'm not going to do it anymore. They're perfect. And then you see that evolution. The next one is accept yourself and others where you are in the journey. And that's really just a matter of, hey, some things have happened, but the journey really starts today. It starts today. And so once you conceptualize that, there's a lot of healing in that. And the final piece is rise up and be resilient. And this is where we teach people how to build that team, that group around you, so that you can't fail. Because here's the thing. When you go watch great basketball teams, football teams, baseball teams, any teams, the ones that we remember, it's not the powerhouse stack team. It's the 1985 Villanova team that beats Georgetown. The teams that play like teams, and you're like, how did you do that? It's not that difficult to understand. If I started walking around and talking to you guys, just listening to the way you live your life, I could come up with a good basketball team just based on your principles. Listen enough, like, this guy's going to play good defense. He's not going to quit. This girl's going to make sure, that she's, looking without the ball where people are moving. You start to figure people out. And it's things that are intangibles that make the team. Not, again, like I said, it's not the great skill set, it's the intangibles. And so you can guarantee success by building an effective team. And then lastly, like we talked about, the why your brilliance. I beat the word up all the time, brilliance, find your brilliance. I just want to give you guys something to look at real quick and think about. Our whole existence is this. picture if I was walking on a tightrope. You know, I'm walking across this big canyon. If I'm walking across this and my why is my core, it's what's going to keep me balanced, my purpose. So once I figure that out, once I do the work and I really start to say what lights my fire and turns me on, once I know that, then I can start balancing better. This is how I balance identity and vision. So my identity is here. So I realize I'm not an idiot like my gym teacher said. They actually never said that, but I'm just trying to drop something off here. So as soon as I do that, it starts to want to tip me over, right? But I have this strong purpose, so I know that's okay, I'll adjust it with a vision. Well, one of the things I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to say, I'm going to make sure nobody else hears that ever again, and I'm going to speak more positively. So you start to adjust, and once you're strong in purpose, as you break down your identity, you replace those with goals, with part of your vision. So for me, I'm not a motivational speaker, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a coach. I'm a person who found their brilliance and helping others who have either lost hope or feeling like they lost hope find their brilliance and share it with the world. That's what I am. Now, you can give me a new vehicle. Your podcast host came up in COVID. So now I've got a few shows, so I'm a podcast host. That was just, hey, there's another way to touch people. We started doing the group coaching, not just the individual coaching. We're doing it online, so we have people all over the world. We come sit in, an event like this, teach business. Those are vehicles. Those are ways that I align. I never leave this. Let's say that the school doesn't like the way I teach anymore. That's fine. I'm not going to sit and I don't even care. Let's say that this isn't the vehicle for me anymore. I don't care. I'm just going to continue to pivot based on keeping my purpose strong. And guess what's going to happen? 5 regrets of the dying will never apply to me. Because I'm going to literally say, I gave 1,000% making sure I aligned to my why and my purpose. And you can never fail. You can only win or learn. And that's all I got today. So love you guys. Thank you so much. And if you guys do want any contact info or whatever, or anything that I talked about, or you want like meditation information, any of the coaching, any of this stuff, just feel free to let me know. Can you read that, or should I have done that in white? You know what's funny? It looks really good on the computer. It's Scott David Goyette at Gmail. And Goyette is Goyette at gmail.com. And if you guys want any of those meditations or anything, and I can send those slides and whatever as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goyette. Before you move, does anyone have any questions? We'll take 2 minutes to just answer any questions that you may have for the speaker.
Well, there's 2 questions, so let's do either order. You want to go first? Okay. Oh, quick question. So that book, The MVP of Intuitive State, that book, so this is interesting. I don't even push that book at all. Cindy actually said, hey, do you still have the book? I've got like 200 of them left in the garage. And I wrote that book, and I go back and forth on this. I wrote that book at a time when I was doing like a lot of drugs, and I was in this like just time of my life that I was so tired, because there was a few years where I'm like I said, what am I doing here? And so I was in this escapist space, and I wrote it to the person that I was. And so there's a lot of kids it's good for, but it's not a one-stop, shop. And so I get worried like if the wrong person, take a look at it. Like there's value in it. Like it's definitely worth reading, but you'll see like now that you know where I was writing it, like it's written well. There's good editors. It's just, I don't know that I would fully agree with everything I said in there now. And someone brought up a good point. They said, but you were there at one point. And they're like, you should continue to put that out. And I'm in disagreement. But I would argue a year ago I don't believe what I believe. So that means I can never publish anything. So it's a good point. The MVP of Intuitive State. What was your question?
I was just wondering, how do you, I'm sure you've heard of the 5 love languages, right?
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel that or this would be a building block for each other? As you stated that
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's interpretation of love comes from a certain place of observation. How would those two?
I love that. Yeah, I think that's perfect. So I think you'd listen to the 5 love languages first and then do that. Because here's the deal. And it's kind of like when you do personality assessments or emotional intelligence assessments, there's some overlap and understanding, between the two. Like for my wife, she's acts of service. So, and I'm like the attention. I'm like, just sit with me. I just want to, I'm like, just hang out. I don't care what we're doing. You know, I'm that guy. I don't need presents. I don't need all that. But once you identify that and then you build this, so I think that they go hand in hand. And there's another thing to bring that up too. It's called human design, which I found amazing. If you guys have ever looked at human design, it's based on Egyptian like numerology, I think. And someone can look at all the times and date you were born. And the first time I heard that, like all of us, I'm like, okay, all right. And then I had a friend who's really into it, who swears by it. And he's got tons of clients. I'm like, well, they must know something, because he's a super honest person. So he does it. I learned the most important thing I ever learned about my daughter, because he did it for her. And I'll share this with you quick, so you can see how a lot of this fluffy type stuff is not super fluffy. There's reality to it. So my daughter is the type of person, and this is just based on time born and whatever, is the type of person that she knows what she wants instantly. So the minute she tastes something, she goes, I hate this. And she knows she'll never want it. She knows. Well, imagine being a parent with an identity, part of me, saying, you got to try it for the full semester and figure out if you like it, because that's exactly how life works, right? Like all football coaches, if you don't go for the full, you'll never know. So my daughter did not want to do anything, because I was sitting here having her, I'm like, you got to do dance we're going to pay for 3 months, you got to do 3 months. So we did this like twice to her, and she's like, I don't want to do anything ever again. Because she knows we're going to make her go for the full cycle. And she knows right away. So then we heard that, and we're like, oh my God, we're bad parents. So to the point, if you don't know the love language, if you're not doing this, all it is lack of information. So the more we learn, the more we grow. But imagine if I went through life without that. My daughter found roller skating, and she loves all these different art things that we were never bringing her to. So she's this amazing artist, an amazing roller skater, does it in half pipes and stuff. We would have never known that. Because we let her go one day, she goes, nope, yep, nope. And so we would have failed completely without exploring all these different things. Does that make sense? Yeah, so thank God for human design, even though I'm still not the biggest practitioner, I trust in it. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Yeah, appreciate it. And I want to thank you on the other end too, because here's the deal. My mom's a nurse practitioner. I've got people in the medical field, and I understand like everything's science-based. Was there a study on it? Did you do this? Did you do this? Like I get it. So I was very surprised that you guys would want me here and understood it. And I know this stuff works because I'm a science-based person. Like I'm very hyper-analytical, so I don't just bring something until I've done the testing on it. Like when I was first coaching people, I'm like, should I be coaching? Like what am I telling them? And so as it happened, it was, we grew, and now I watch the numbers. I can tell you how many people who have ever taken my class have had a breakthrough, what week it happened. Like I'm watching all of that. So I'm not just giving you fluffy BS. I'm integrating all of these things that are being tested by either me or others, and I'm watching going, like, no, yeah, maybe. How do we integrate? How do we bring this together? So even like with the shamanism versus other religions versus science, I'm going fluffy, and I'm going, no, that went 10 out of 10 times. There's some value. And never saying that one thing is right or wrong. Every piece comes together to help solve the bigger problem. Does that make sense? Cool. Well, thank you guys so much.
Please
Super
make
appreciate
sure
it.
that you complete the evaluations on the table, and as you walk out, there is a brown basket for you to put your evaluations on. And also, Mr. Goyette, on behalf of SMA Healthcare, I'd like to present you with a gift.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.